you know what happens is that Monday threw the whole school off. It threw the computers off too. They were like, wait, what? We're not off today? And so I think that's what's happening. So I just wanted to go over a few things. I did play around with a few things on your start page. So you can see that I still have the COVID clearance link on there. I actually ended up putting like a little shortcut on my smartphone because it's super annoying and I still think they should have done stickers, but whatever. But then above that, you'll see that I actually finally, thank you, Gabby, because I swear I kept putting it off and putting it off, but I finally updated my in-person or one-on-one office hours page. So if you go to the syllabus, you can actually look at my availability week by week and actually book from the page. So but it's gigantic. I don't know why. So the syllabus is under it. If you hate this, I can just give you the link. So you can just have the link if this doesn't load for you, but you can actually see my availability and just click on there and it'll let you book. So it'll let you book in 20-minute increments and it'll send you the Zoom link and all that good stuff. Okay. Any questions about that? So this is in addition to this in-person that you guys have to yourselves right after class. So this is for everybody, including you. I'm not saying you can't book, but this is more of a public face. So like I've had people that don't know me, but want to talk about whatever, they book with that, things like that. Okay. All right. The other thing, which hilariously we may not get to today, is that at the bottom, I was trying to think of a way to organize, because this course is designed as a lecture in a lab. So I don't know if you know that, but so we kind of review and do a little bit of work and application during class, and then we do the lab, which is coding. We're not like a wet lab or dry lab, right? So we do data. And so I was trying to think, how can I organize this to help you guys? Because the coding is very additive, right? So you have to kind of, everything stacks on top of each other. It's not something that you kind of independently remember and then you never go back. You kind of want to have it all together. So I went ahead and made it its own module, which I'll be adding to throughout the course of the semester. So if you click on that link, which we'll go to today, hopefully, you'll see online folks, are you able to see what I'm seeing, or do I need to actually share my screen?
You need to share, please.
Oh, I got to see the chat. Hang on. Oh, yeah. Nobody said anything. There we go. Is that okay? Let me go back. Okay. So here's the landing page. So if you guys want to book with me online, folks, you go to the syllabus page and you can see right here, you can actually book directly. So next week is my first avail. Oh, somebody literally just unbooked. Insane. Okay, so I'm impressed though. Go get it. Go get it. So there's my times and availabilities. So you can just click through and you can see that that's when I'll be available. The other thing was the SAS link. So that's at the bottom here. I didn't know where else to put it because I'm pretty top loaded up here. So it's getting a little crazy. So I went down here and I cleaned it out. And so I'm going to add every week kind of what we do, so you remember where stuff might be. And then, so that's kind of what you click through. And so ideally we're going to get that today, but let's not hold our breath. Anyway, so that's where I'm going to put SAS stuff for you guys, so that when we do lab, AKA SAS, you go there. Make sense? Okay. And I think that's about it for that part. Okie dokie. So let's jump into where we kind of left off last week. And we kind of left off talking about, let me stop sharing so that what's weird is that when I record, it's like it shows you everything, which is super weird.
Oh no, did she get kicked out?
Oh, now I see her, but she's
I just
muted.
can't hear her.
I guess.
Oh, okay. So you guys can all help everybody. Oh my, I told you it was going to be one of those days, didn't I? And you can't even read my lips. Oh, I'm so sorry. Should I just give up? No, you don't give up. We're going to do this. Okay, don't worry, none of that was important. Oh man. Okay. Oh, there went the train. Okay. Back. Okay, data, information, decisions. That's my favorite information management processing framework, actually. Anyway, so thinking, I literally just lost my train of thought completely. Okay, hold on, I'm bringing it back. Give me a second. Somebody tell a joke so that I don't look so silly up here. So we talked at length about how important it was to contextualize that so that we can actually manage that information and make good decisions, right? So the last thought I'll leave you though with that is that within all those theories that you come up with all those great frameworks that some of you started already mentioning for the task, the last thing I wanted to leave you with, which we didn't fully cover last week, it was the last 2 slides, is the lens of equity. And I know that it's a word that we throw around. It's often thrown around with inequality, equality, justice. But what does it actually mean? And so this is something that I urge you to really take seriously as you think when you're operationalizing frameworks, is what does it always mean? Because everybody throws this up here, everybody talks about it, but what are the implications of it for whatever you end up doing, okay? So when you hear, first of all, how many of you have seen this figure or something similar of comparisons of inequity, equity? So everybody's quite familiar with this, which is not unusual for a group of public health students. But when you look at this, what is the thing that you see? What is the message that you get from this? What do you process from this?
Yeah, everybody, when it comes to equity, people need different resources to become equitable, like to have the same access. A lot of people are at a disadvantage of things. And then what we think is equality and giving everybody something isn't always what's best for everybody. Because even if you give somebody a phone, you can't get service, you know? So it's like everybody needs different things.
Okay.
To be.
So if you have a phone, maybe you don't have service.
Or a charger or electricity.
Okay. Service. What else? Very good. Very good example.
Dr. Schiaffino, can you hear me?
Oh,
Can you hear me?
I opened it up to see if I could see a little hand. You have to be very vigorous in your waving.
Hi, can you hear
I
me?
wish I could hear him. Make sure you chat it. Oh, guys, all this technology and look at us doing charades. Why can't I hear him? I wonder.
It's a really long Is the computer muted?
I don't know.
If you go to the mute, like,
Wait. Say something, Ryan.
Can you hear me?
Oh,
Yeah, I mean, I can log in and then play it on my iPad.
what does output mean? I don't know what's
Little arrow, it's a little carrot.
his.
Next to me, next to you, there's a little carrot.
Mine or his?
No, on Zoom, on Zoom. Next to the mute button. Next to the mute button, there's a little carrot. Arrow sign, top, pointing up, like a small.
I'm not muted though, that's me.
No, I mean the output.
It allows you to change your audio.
Yeah, where the speaker.
Yeah, come on up. Let's do this. Why not? It's a learning class today.
Yeah, I was just
So,
gonna say, I can log
You
in on
can
mine.
do maybe the same as system and like leave around.
Do you think?
So, speak.
Let's do settings, audio.
And then
Let's try this, Taylor, and then see what happens.
output levels are right here. So
Speaker. Hello?
Hey, can
Yeah,
you hear
but
me?
wouldn't it be,
So I did it on when I had my Bluetooth device. I just went to the Zoom.
here you go for it.
I'm just gonna play around. Hopefully.
Brian, are you talking this whole time? Because we need to just know if you're talking. It's fine.
Okay, can you speak?
Yeah, can you hear me? Hello?
Oh, yeah, I saw his lips move.
It should work. Like there should be like an output with Bluetooth and sorry.
No, you're good. You're good.
It's okay.
You're good. Okay, well, we'll play with it later. Can I share the screen? Let's see here. Are you in? Wait, I don't see you. Okay, let's just see your question. It's a really long comment. No pressure. Hey, I get it. I get it. 646.
Are there settings on the podium that you can change?
I tried, but it's not letting me because I looked and it even lets me mute audio, but I don't hear any audio here. Because I can turn volume up, but there's nothing. All right, let's just move on because otherwise we're going to be on this the whole time. Oh, there's Taylor. Okay. Does anybody else have an example while we're trying to play around with that?
Hello, Ryan?
Hi, Taylor.
Yeah.
Hi, Taylor.
Hey, guys.
All right, let's hear that comment.
Okay, my comment's not that great. I was just thinking about the criminal justice system, and it's like these are all things we strive for, like justice, but a lot of times we'll call something justice, but it's not truly justice, right? It's like just something to strive towards.
Oh,
Yeah, that's a
that
good
sounds
one.
very familiar. What does that sound like? Oh, that's weird. I can hear myself. I'm turning my phone. What does that sound like? That's very good. That is a good comment, Ryan. It's a very good comment. Yes, but remember when we were, and this is a long time ago, so I know, but when we talk about quality and when we talk about OPs, opportunities for improvement, what are the causes of improvement? Remember, there were 4 causes, right? And it's usually something like a pandemic that causes us which is very rare. Sorry, I should say usually. That never happens. But the more common causes are the desired outcome does not match the current outcome or the observed outcome, right? And that is something that we strive for. And it often is a result of inequities that we observe. So if we are equity minded, many of the phenomena that we're going to observe are a result of inequities that we perceive, that we observe. Does that make sense? Because we know, much like Ryan just said, we know that what justice should look like, and then we see what justice is looking like, and we say, wait, this doesn't match what's going on. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's why we're going to do lit reviews. That's the whole justification. That's really all. It was all a plan. I'm just kidding. But some of the issues that we think about, and so you all actually kind of talked a little bit about them, are exactly that. So when you think about geography, so people that live in rural areas versus urban areas have differential access, for example. People that are younger versus older have differential outcomes, but they also have differential experiences of care, differential experiences of surgery and clinical outcomes, right? So it's not just like, and they also have differential experiences with medical technology, even with the medical system. So think about how easy it is and convenient for you to use a patient portal to book your appointments online, right? Now think about that for your grandmother or your grandfather. Would they say the same? Economics, so is everyone feeling me on this? Okay. And this is not exhaustive. Please know that. This, you guys can see this, right? Oh, thank you. Okay. Oh. And thank you so much, Taylor. Wonderful fix. If you don't mind, keep it on in case somebody else wants to comment. So Taylor's our gal. All right. And then this is another framework. It might look familiar. This is actually the original 1973 framework of social determinants of health. So, you know, we kind of toss it around like it's very common, but it's actually not that old. 1973 is not that old. Okay. That's what I just said. That's what I meant. Making sure I'm very clear about that. Relative to like 1492. Okay, that's what I'm saying. Just want to make sure I'm clear. Definitions, people, definitions. So when you think about equity, I want to expand your thinking to not just seeing this in the news about the lack of access to internet for school children and older adults and people that need telehealth, right? That's another equity issue. So any questions about that? And the last plug I'll make for theory, because you know I love it, is think about things in terms of nonlinearity and unintended consequences. Remember I talked about this a lot? So whenever you do think of what you want, don't forget about what else happens. So the unintended consequence, that's complexity. It's not, the input to the output is not equivalent, is it? There's always an opportunity cost, which you should all be learning in economics. Have you learned that yet?
Yeah.
Okay. So what are the things you get? And what are you giving up or not getting? And what are the additional unintended consequences? Because this can also be good or bad. Right? They can be both. They can go both ways. So these are the things that I want you thinking about. This is that thinking about thinking. And again, that's why it's so important that we do a good job of looking at what's already been there. And then we already talked about the models, so I don't need to go through that. This is just me reviewing. So remember, I'm going to review what you guys already did, which I am not reviewing this section, except for, which I hope everybody looked through, the fact that we're talking about what I want to be very key about is the differences between reviews. Okay. So like this is something that would be in a take-home quiz, for example. You got a take-home quiz sometime this semester, because you take two. Like if you got two take-home quizzes and there was one that you got first, this might be on there. For example. The important part is, and this is a very important distinction for you guys, because I had students get kind of confused last year, and not in a bad way. They just did really, really good lit reviews, but it's a lot of work. So you're gonna learn the methods of a systematic review, but the rigor of your reviews, for example, for your final projects will be a scoping review. Okay, they're very similar. You apply the similar methods. See how this is? Structured but limited. So it's a partial systematic review because this thing is like a beast. Okay. So you're going to be like little tiny beasts. Okay. But you're going to learn the gold standard. Remember we talked about gold standard, the aspiration? But that doesn't mean that this isn't a lot of work. It just means that it's doable by one person because a systematic review is usually done with a team or at least 2 or 3 people. Does that make sense? Okay.
Is it like if somebody was to do different departments and then the systematic review would be like the whole hospital?
Oh, not that big, but think of it more like a systematic review. You'd probably have like, you could review like 3,000 papers. Your scoping review, you only need to review like 100, 150 titles and not the full papers. We'll talk about that, but that's a good conceptualization. It's really about scope, about size, okay? Because the quality is still the same. It's very similar. And the activities and the mechanics of it, okay? All right, so I wanted you guys to make sure you're cognizant of that. I wanted to make sure you're very cognizant of this because today we're gonna really focus on this, okay? And I wanted you guys to be very clear on this. So you should have done this part in your task today. If you did not, go ahead and do that now in the next like 2 minutes and just guess with your partner. If you don't know what PICO is, it's in the slide before, but take 2 to 3 minutes to go through those because we're going to jump into those.
Hello.
SAS?
Yeah.
Oh, thank God.
We have to do them one at a time though.
Oh, then I can just walk the whole class through because I have the text file.
Would that be okay or is that?
No, yeah, just give me one sec. Actually, go ahead, get started. Yeah, you're good. I'm good, guys. I'll let you know if I need your help. Okay,
Sorry, I wasn't sure if anyone can help.
I'm gonna pause the video, guys. Okay, you guys can see the screen, right? Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming. I really
I
appreciate
wasn't
it.
even sure again.
Can
It was
you,
my first time, But
what would be really helpful for me though is if you get the students started.
Yeah.
Just because that way I can walk them through, but
yeah, I didn't realize.
because I have the Excel, I have the text file somewhere.
Uh-huh.
I know somebody sent it to
You're
me.
talking about the licensing thing?
Yeah, because I know how to do it. Oh, none of us have admin privileges, so I
Oh,
can't do it. So then you have to do every single one.
As long as, oh, we'll see.
Do you want to start with mine?
Yeah, let me. This is HHS's classroom, right?
Yeah,
Okay, so this should be okay.
just, you can't, they have to see it and I've got students online.
Oh, so,
Does it have to
well,
restart?
it's paused, right? Screen's paused?
Yeah,
So we should be okay. Like I can just type stuff out, right?
I think so.
Secure. Sorry.
No, you're
It's
good.
been a while since I've helped in the classroom.
No
so-
worries. Let me go around and help students.
Uh-huh.
If you see chats, oh, hang on, I gotta just check. Yes, Jacqueline, yes. Can you hear me? I hope you can hear me, Jacqueline. Okay, good. Just those 4. The task has more questions. Yeah. It's the first one. Yeah, there's 4 in the task. There was a little glitch in the programming. I screwed up the programming for the test, by the way. Do you guys understand what to do? Try to do it with buddies. You guys aren't just in the back. But do you understand what to do? Do the PICO?
Oh, man.
Yeah. I screwed up the programming on one of the SAS questions. But so you can't enter it. But yeah, we're just gonna go over it.
Not a domain, I think.
Okay, good. So let him know when he comes around to update you. So really, it's just a not all of it, it's subset. Great question, ma'am. That's a great question. Are you over here by yourself? There's hand sanitizer and masks over there. Yeah, did I forget one?
Yeah.
No, I didn't. It's on purpose. It's a tricky. Number 4 is tricky. It's a trick question.
So I don't.
Did it work?
No, unfortunately, I think it's like the admin accounts are with the library stuff. The library stuff.
You help me with that?
Yeah, I'm gonna go figure it.
Thank you so much. Oh, can you? Can you? See if I can, they can hear you, but I can't.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. I was trying
So I think it looks like this is like this would be
Yeah.
the sound coming from here.
Nothing. Okay.
Let me see. I don't know if anyone's talking though.
Can one of you guys talk?
Hello.
No, darn it. Oh, it's so strange. Hear a ringtone.
Oh, it
Yeah,
did.
that's
It
all.
changed it for you.
That's so weird. 'Cause usually it's a.
Yeah.
Because it says headphones and speakers should be coming through here.
No go. Okay, well, we tried.
Okay.
Okay.
Let me
Yeah, if
see
you
if
can
like
help with
the other
SAS.
computers here.
Yeah, ask somebody that is not working, because some of them work and some of them don't. Okay, guys. Did I hear something? A mechanical sound? No, okay.
Sorry, the one that didn't have that. Okay.
It's most, can somebody that does not have SAS working, please raise your hand? If you're, oh, okay, so it's, okay. So. I was getting excited. But it's most of you. Okay.
Sorry.
What's your name?
My name is Wesley. Like libraries. Because
Oh, good Lord. Okay, let's keep moving, guys, so that we, oh, I stopped my screen sharing, not the recording. Awesome. Recorded all that. Okay, so did everybody give this a shot? Okay. So what I'm gonna do now is give you the answers. So for number 1, how many of you got, can you guys see this okay, everybody? All right, let me try to make it bigger just in case for my online friends. Go ahead. You're fine.
I think I'm just gonna like tell Brian or Colin. Because
I just, oh yeah, because
yeah,
that's
because I
here.
took all the library stuff because I'm looking at all the like administrative
Can you
stuff.
let the library know at least and see
Yeah.
if anybody can help us out?
Yeah.
Maybe they can do a full one.
Yeah.
Excellent, thank you so much. Okay, so For the first one, how did we do? Was anybody so off that you have a question or wondering? Okay. Okay, so can we understand, first of all, what does P mean? Population. Patient? So the population can be patient, but that's not always the case, right? What are some other populations that we can study? Thank you, hospitals. Yes, so be careful with that. Granted, I did do all individuals, right? So patients, but it can also be healthy people. So they're not patients. So be very careful with how you're terming things, one, and two, think of it as your unit of analysis as well. The other thing about PICO, by the way, and you will have read this if you haven't had a chance to, so it's very important that you read, is that PICO is geared toward intervention studies. So that's what the I is for, okay? So that's usually the intervention or the disruptor within a care continuum, right? So that's why it might have thrown you off a little bit, but you don't always necessarily think about intervention as the intervening, but you can think of it as the thing that you're studying, okay? Or the independent variable. So for example, we have how does an optional wellness visit affect no-show rates? And if you notice that this, the comparator is usually the reference group, right? Because especially if you don't see, and I'm trying to remember if I had, let me check something. I can't remember if I had compared with not having this visit. Pretty sure I did. But definitely for number 2 over here, or this one to the right, I know I didn't put this here. In the previous slide, this is sort of understood compared with usual care, right? So sometimes you won't even see it written. That's kind of the whole point. Does that make sense? So when you don't see that comparison group, think of what is usual care? What is the reference group? Does that make sense? Okay. Did I say hand up over here?
You gotta answer that question. I was just, yeah, because there's one and like under question 2 that I thought like natural polished nails versus artificial nails, like they both do the comparators, like you have a reference group, and then that would be the natural polished nails.
Yeah, we did the natural polish like a comparison group and then artificial nails.
That, yeah, actually that probably should have been flipped. I just realized, my bad.
Yeah,
Like your regular nails, yes. Sorry, that should have been probably flipped, my bad. But, or they're interchangeable people. But yes, you're right. But that, so you guys are getting it. Does that make sense? Because your normal state, you can't have no nails. I mean, that could be another comparator, a frightening comparator, but it could, right? So yes, your natural regular nails. Excellent, so you guys got this. And again, so think about the comparator in that sense. And then lastly, let me think if there's anything I don't want to miss here. We do this for assessing risk. We can see this one for process type intervention. So for example, remote monitoring versus non-remote monitoring, right? And so that's an intermediate outcome or an intermediate process for older adults with hypertension. And then the improvement on their blood pressure. The key I want you to remember is that the population and the outcome always start with population outcome. So that's your step. Always pick out the population, always pick out the outcome, and then the comparator. And that's usually going to make it very easy for you. And then you can usually pick out which one is the comparator intervention.
Can you go over again this last one? I was writing-
LED?
Yes.
I just realized I didn't number the answer slide. Okay, so how to limit English proficient patients diagnosed with cancer perceive, monitoring, reporting their intermediate treatment symptoms via a remote health device. Let's see here.
I just don't know how the diagnosis of cancer would be an intervention. That's.
Wait, that's not, that's, I might have messed up the label on that one. Hold on. How would I? Okay. This should be here, perception, and this should be here. So I screwed up. Sorry, I did these. So once out, ignore the parentheses, because I failed my test. So the population is limited English proficient patients diagnosed with cancer. Yes, yes, yes. This is, yes. I was like, wait a second, that does look crazy. So P is LEP with cancer, okay? And then I is self-monitoring. And then C is what? If I is self-monitoring via mHealth, by the way, just self-monitoring however you would normally, right? Which is usually when you get a self-management plan, which even that in and of itself is an intervention because a lot of people don't get a self-management plan. So you get discharge instructions really, and then you're like, okay, good luck. Is that about right? Can we say that? You get discharged. I mean, whatever you get. Usual care is what you say. Usual care, which in this case would be
Maybe monitored by healthcare
discharge, but yeah, so just like surveillance, monitor with healthcare, you know, they tell you, okay, look at this, and then call us if something happens. So, you know, very basic. Whereas this is ongoing, right? And then what's your outcome? Their perception of their care, whatever perception you want. And usually this is probably going to be like patient experience. Yeah, this was definitely not one of my best ones. This is, I gotta rewrite this one, guys.
So what do we do? So what do we do in the past? Should we just leave it?
No, fix it. Like,
No, you said it's not good.
oh, the parentheses and stuff? Yeah, but you know what the parentheses are next to perceived, so that can still be outcome. And then remember, this is still not written.
Okay, guys.
This is still not there.
You just assume that. Yeah.
Well, it's understood. Kind of like the I is understood. Yeah. No, you can still label it correctly. It would go P, P-O, and then I.
They can't see the board, so I'm just gonna type it.
They can't?
The whiteboard, the whiteboard. That's why I'm there.
I can't win.
Well, Ryan's in here.
You can? Oh, here, hang on.
No, you can't.
Look at Ryan's face. Okay, I know it's hard to read. I'm sorry. I got nothing, guys. Okay. Oh, the board.
I got it. I'm typing it as this point.
So it's here, I'll type it in. Yeah, can you do P equals LEP? Okay, thank you, dear. Okay. P. Oh, perfect. Yeah, thank you. Okay, you got it. All right. Oh my goodness. Okay. So good catch, you guys. I totally missed that. My bad. But you know what? That tells me, and see, I did have patient experience or patient satisfaction. Okay. So that's the whole point. And it's funny because I put that as a patient outcome, but did not put that right there. Nice, good job, Molly. But clearly you're on it. So that was a trick question with a trick wrong answer, which you clearly perceived. So I'm really proud of you guys. Okay, so that was the key review there. Do you guys understand then how PICO works? So does everybody understand? Questions? Does everybody understand that? Are there still questions? I see some confusion.
The confusion is like, how do we?
I understand.
Oh, yeah. What happened is, for example, this one, it should go here.
Yeah.
The little parentheses should be right here. And then that should explain them all. Yeah. It happens to be before right now. So that I can make it as confusing as possible. Okay. No, you're great. You're great. Okay, so now, so everybody kind of understands PICO, right? Okay, so you could make a research question. You could pick out a population, you could pick out an intervention, you could pick out a comparator, you could pick out an outcome. And what's the secret? Start with what? Good. The population and outcome. So when I ask you, when you're asked to think about, so remember I asked you a framework? So what do you think the next question might be is, what's a population you're interested in? And what do you care about for that population? So what's the population you're interested in? Just have to make eye contact. Okay, excellent. People that are experiencing homelessness. Does anybody know of any outcomes related to people experiencing homelessness?
Back problems,
What?
chronic back pain.
Really?
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Oh, well, that's-
Okay, do all people that experience homelessness experience chronic back pain?
No.
Okay. So is that an outcome? So homelessness causes chronic back pain? Sounds like a comparator, doesn't it? Maybe people that do and do not experience back pain. So persons that experience homelessness, that do and do not experience back pain. So we still don't have an outcome. Anybody can jump in. Don't worry, I don't have to follow you. I'm using the whiteboard, yes. Okay, I won't use the whiteboard. What do I use? I don't know what to use. Anybody? Sorry, I have to sit down. I too experience chronic back pain. Pain medication. Ah, very good. So, how would you frame this? Anybody? Anybody? Okay, I'll give you this one for free. Are there differences in pain medication use among people that experience homelessness by those that do and do not suffer from chronic back pain? Can you PICO that? Can you understand that question?
Yeah.
And is that a valid research question that you can find evidence for? Most likely. Does that make sense? Because I'm not assuming anything, but but I can build hypotheses off that, right? Make sense? All right, let me see our time. Okay, now literally please work with a partner. This time, like, I don't want to assign you, but I will if I have to. Because you guys don't seem like very like, and you don't have to like get up in each other's faces, you can stay. But in groups of 2 or 3, make me a research question. You knew this was coming, right? You saw this coming. Okay. Okay, online folks, you can work in one group. Do you want me to put you in a room or can you guys hear each other talk to each other? Do I need to put you in a room?
Can everyone hear me?
It can be.
Yep.
Just real quick, if you guys noticed, Melissa had a great question. You can decide what medications you want it to be. Yes. And it can be like overuse of a certain medication. Excellent question. I hope you can hear me. Can you guys talk to each other? Or
Yeah. Yeah.
we can hear, can you hear each other though? Yeah, okay. All right, take about 5 minutes, make a question.
So our population of people that experience homelessness,
Yes.
and then our intervention is pain medication.
That's my research question.
Right.
Amongst people
Want to talk about what outcomes or comparison?
experience.
And then if you're not sure, if the outcome is does this cause this? Right? Does homelessness cause this? Or just, yeah.
That's very vague. You know, like people that experience homelessness, are they sleeping in their cars? Are they sleeping on the concrete? Because those factors could also contribute to chronic back pain, but we're not focusing on the factors, right? We're simply focusing on the pain medication.
Yeah, so the intervention. So we could do like 2 different types of, classes of drugs. Like we could do like NSAIDs versus opioids or something like that. Our intervention would be the pain medication. We just have to, and the outcome obviously is chronic back pain. Amongst people who experience homelessness, wait, can we do like amongst people who experience chronic back pain? Can we switch up the PICO, or does the population have to be people that
Oh,
experience?
you're right. That is a good point.
Long hair
Yeah, that's a good thought. Like, is it, now I'm trying to think of this backwards. Is it people that use drugs for chronic back pain? How many of them experience homelessness?
Well, yeah, because that could also go into addiction as well if they're using opioids, but that would be a long-term study. I think it would be easier to just have the population be people that are currently experiencing homelessness, at least for this assignment.
So is that that reason? Or is it? Yeah. Okay, what's that gonna do? What do you call it? Decrease. I know, like, okay, but that means what's the opposite or what's not? Let's say,
Are-
maybe we could do like amongst people who experience chronic back pain, does taking opioids versus not taking opioids contribute to homelessness?
Can you type that?
Yeah.
Who experience? Oh, I like that.
Mhm.
Cool. I'm still not sure if we have to keep the same.
Does population have to be? Yeah, that's a good question.
Because diabetes management is up the scale right here. Is diabetes management normal? That's an intervention. Diabetes management is an intervention. So what's your population? It's more like that's there. Because you're not gonna apply two different interventions. It's diabetes management and diabetes management. You don't want differences in intervention. What are we tired of? Intervention. You're not making two interventions, right? What's the goal of diabetes management? What about? I think that's exactly. Okay, so then what's your, if it's patients with diabetes? So then LHD is what? Non-LHD. That's your nurse care. Just like, so then chronic back pain can be your population, people that have chronic back pain. Can chronic back pain and overuse medication? Among people with chronic back pain, overuse of pain medication lead to homelessness. That's another research. Does that make sense? It's the same research question. Same word, different. So put this one as a type. Okay. Anybody else struggling with the research question? That could use a little help? So everybody's ready to bring their research question so that everybody else can label it? Okay. Who needs one more minute? 1, 2, okay, because you're gonna go up and you're gonna write your research question and everybody, oh yes, prize, I didn't tell you that part. All right. What, you guys all wanted to have class in person? And I try to write starters? All right, I'm so sorry.
Taylor, can you hear me?
Yes, I'm so embarrassed. Yeah, well, having practice, right? You already have one. So having additional ones, yeah. Good. And so the one thing I would tell you, so if I were to do a lit review on this type of question, this is actually, it would be the yeah. So be more specific. Like this is good for now, but just in general, in the future, like, how do we operationally qualify? Like how do you manage this? Right? More recent. It may not be easy, but yeah. What are the actual things you can measure that? Right? And so just general quality of life, I'm like, well, it's one could be satisfaction, mental health, could be, and even that, mental health, based on what? Could be this scale, that is, mood scale, MOSA, you know, lots of different. Anybody else having problems? Okay, who's my first volunteer? Oh, Gabby, thank you. Go ahead and write up your question on the board, please. Actually, I know, I'll take a picture. I don't want the online folks to miss out. Oh, okay. Let's do. Okay, can you guys write them up here? Can you write your questions up here? Okay, guys, they're gonna write their questions up here and we're all gonna label them. That includes online group. You guys are the OG. Oh, okay, I'm gonna write them up here. And I'll just want, here, write it on here. Would you, do you mind typing it in? That way. Yeah. And your old lady teacher's gonna sit down. Okay. See if this is right, I'm not sure, but I'm gonna put the little box there. You can move them over if they're in the way. You just want to. Or if it's different. It's different. Actually, it's different. It's a crappy keyboard. Very good. No, they have to. Yeah. No, everybody's gonna write it and I'll label it. Okay, pick the next group, please. Gabby, pick who's next. Let me put you guys over here. Okay, so that's one group. And this thing is so big, it's taking up so much room. Oh, there we go. Okay, go ahead. Hopefully it lets you. Oh, good. Yeah. Yes. Oh, yeah, I'll move it. Okay. So move them over. Oh, I don't know if I can anymore. There we go. Okay, next. Oh, drat. Sorry. There we go. How close can I get? Oh my gosh. come on, guys, come on. Let's get them up here because we're gonna run out of time. They're not coming, so there will not be SAS today, which sucks. But I will show you the step-by-step, so you'll do it at home, hopefully, and we'll just catch up. And you guys can start labeling the ones you see. Uh-oh, you disappeared. There we go. There we go. Okay. Don't be shy.
You can see that.
I'll make sure to do jam boards. That way the online folks can always see. And then online folks, can you guys type yours into the chat for us? If you haven't already, I see a chat there.
This is tricky now to type on.
I know, it's super weird.
To get back into the routine.
Hopefully that's not spelled right.
All right, Moni, you're our last one. Why are those boxes do funky stuff like that? Oh, one more. Okay, come on up. Jump on up. Oh, you took out the intervention, huh? Fair, that's fair. Okay, you should be labeling. So everybody's ready to label these? So if I call on your group, you're gonna tell us what it is? And it's not your question? Because I won't call on your group for your question, obviously. It'll be a different question that you'll be asked to label. But you won't know which question it is. That's the trick there. See how that works? That's the same for you online OGs. You're in on this too. So I hope you're labeling as a group. We could, yeah, let's extend this. There we go. Now we can see it. No, too far. Oh, there we go. Perfect. I'm looking at the word because it does a weird thing where it cuts it off, but there it's perfect. And let me get the OGs group. Oops. Oh, no, that's not what I want. Are you kidding me? Oh, come on. Fine.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys, I abbreviated yours. These are really good questions, guys. I'm impressed. Okay. Who's feeling lucky? I'm going after you, OGs. OGs, you're up. Taylor, are you still logged in by any chance?
Oh,
So
yeah.
we can hear them? Okay. OGs. Oh.
We're listening.
Hello.
Y'all.
Hi.
Hey, there goes Ryan. Or is it Ryan? Yeah.
Should I just pick one at random?
You wish, no.
Does anyone else want to answer this question?
That's you. Okay, when I don't know what when I make it.
I'm sorry?
When I make it red.
Okay.
You want me to mute myself?
Yeah, you can. You can hear yourself. He's not gonna. So they don't hear.
Is that helping? Nope.
Well, only mute yourself.
But then they can't hear me.
Just like lower, what's the point of that? No, like you have to lower your volume on YouTube.
Okay, go ahead, Ryan, or whoever wants to talk.
Okay.
All right, if one wants to talk.
No.
There goes Ryan. Wait, Ryan was just about to talk. Ah,
We're gonna set up like this. P equals. Can you tell Ryan this so or don't?
yeah, so he's P equals. Here, let me just older adults. Can I switch my camera? I'm in the back of the class.
Let the OGs go first.
Can you see? I can't see myself.
So the population is older adults who live in SNFs.
Older adults who live in SNFs? Does everybody agree?
Yes. Yes.
Are you sure? Just older adults that live in SNFs? Why not? Why
And those
not?
who live,
Okay.
No, just jump in there. Look, it's a free for all.
Okay. We're just kidding.
You guys say it really loud because right now might not be.
Yeah. So older adults living in skilled
What about the ones
nursing
who live alone?
facilities. The one.
Hey, Melissa and Jacqueline, we can't see, we can only see Ryan's face. It's like she's standing alone. So, yeah.
Can you hear her?
SNF
They
versus
probably can't
home
hear.
alone.
They
Okay,
can only hear myself.
okay. What else? Outcomes.
Oh,
So what's the issue? We're not gonna do all this because I want to give you guys a break and we have more stuff to do, so what would be the issue in finding evidence for this? And I kind of started talking to one of you guys. So the key would be to find evidence about this, right? To support this. Because what ends up happening is so PICO is really helpful for you guys to organize your thoughts.
the first research question that you come up with is not gonna be FICO. It's gonna be like, huh. That's literally the first research question ever made. Huh, huh. Okay, so they're not pretty. That's okay. They're iterative. Like super iterative, like years of research. Okay, so do not be so hard on yourself. They have to come up with the most amazing research question the first go around. We look at evidence, we realize, oh, this has nothing to do with anything. But look at this. This is super important. Okay, that's how it's a feedback. Go ahead.
Jacqueline asked, how would you define a disparity?
Great question. So, and I'm about to get to that. Let's
You
ask
wanna
her.
unmute? And then like. she can-
Hi.
I'm so glad
I love this class so much because
it's like a team effort. So the key is that
you need a research question that is specific, because it would be so hard to find this evidence, because I would say, what disparities? Disparities could be so many things. So one of the great questions Jacqueline asked is, what's a disparity? Do we understand what the difference is between a difference and a disparity? Because that is really critical. The Institute of Medicine has the best definition for this. I urge you to look for it. But a disparity is a mutable difference, a difference that shouldn't be there. So for example, you use a different treatment for cancer than you do for skin rash. That's different, right? A disparity is triple the waiting time for a Medicaid patient versus a Medicare patient. That's a disparity. Does that make sense? Because that should not be happening. That has nothing to do with the clinical presentation of the health-related costs. Whereas you don't put some calamine on a rat on cancer. You slap some oatmeal or calamine on the rat. I'm not a doctor. That's probably not every rat. Do not take medical advice from me. Okay? Does that make sense? Ask Jacqueline if that is sufficient.
Sometimes when the comparison and the interventions are very similar, how would we define which one as which?
So the intervention is usually the comparison of the intervention, because the intervention technically has to compare. It in and of itself is a comparator. It's like an additional comparator, right? So that's why it's confusing, but think of it as usual care. So that's the intervention. That's it. So that's what you usually are. And if there's nothing, if there is no intervention, then that's the usual care.
Like, well, somebody in a skilled nursing facility versus those who live alone, that could vary by culture. So I'm not sure which is about the usual care for this situation.
That's a really great point. That's why it's not really an intervention. It's just a comparator. So this is a cross-sectional study, right? And so there is no I. And I don't, Brian, did your group identify an I?
Well, wouldn't I be?
Third question, nobody identified an I, did you? An intervention?
I think the intervention might be just the nursing facility itself, because they've been taken care of. It's just a little bit of overlap, that's what I thought. I mean,
No, because an intervention applies to everyone. We give the intervention to everyone. Yeah. Okay, so no, it would not be that. And that's also why it's not spoken.
So is it okay if the person has an
Oh, yeah. Remember I said at the beginning, and so this is totally normal. This will be very normal. I'm sorry. That's a great question. Let me repeat that. This is very normal, because remember, PICO was originally created for clinical trials and medical studies. So they're usually testing the efficacy of drug intervention. So that's why PICO, all this came from RCTs. That's why it's so rigorous. But that's often why you won't see the intervention. Does that make sense? And the interventions that I showed you are behavioral mostly, or lately technology. Okay, great question. And make sure you don't forget that. That's a really key little detail, but really important. So yes, it's absolutely okay to generalize. So these are the three main things. Like definitely, you always want to have a comparison because that is just good design. Because otherwise you're biasing and you're not making your work generalizing, okay? Because then you're only looking at people in nursing homes or skilled nursing facilities, and you're only looking at that group. But then you're like, well, this is only good for people in nursing facilities. Then I can't compare it to anybody else. And yeah, culture is one thing because what's the other group we might consider comparing? Because I feel like that's actually missing a third group, which is what? So, oh, well, actually living alone is that kind of covers a lot. But skilled nursing facilities, living alone, or family, right? Or you could lump them all into not living in a skilled nursing facility. That's the other way to do two groups. Not. Make sense? But you can, it's always better to tease it out and be more fine scale, depending, but that's affected by your sample size. So we'll get into that in a couple of weeks, right? All right, let's do OGs. Pick somebody in the class if you can see them. I don't think you can. So just pick a name and then that group will go next.
Tiffany Chin.
VP. Tiffany Chin. I don't remember which one y'all's question was. So let's go with, I like this one. Networking. Okay, Tiffany, who is your buddy? Okay. All right, it's purple. Oh, geez, you type your P in the thingy. Okay. So what's the population? Okay. I didn't look closely, so I'm gonna look back. I'm trying to write. Okay. Okay, what's the outcome? Remember, start with the population and the outcome. I just realized that I gave this to the nurse. Dang it. But that's in a good way. Okay. Okay, so there is no usual care. So this could be an intervention. Is it an intervention or is it a comparative?
I think it's an intervention because the usual would be if you were to, well, I guess it could be.
Okay,
Okay,
yeah.
The typical would be to do nothing. So
Ah.
it would be, so if you're not having medication, then I guess you could argue that it's a comparator if they're not already trying to manage it with diet and exercise.
Ah, okay.
But if they are already doing that and it's not working, then that would be the usual, and then the medication would be an intervention.
Does everybody understand? Does that make sense? Okay. Online folks, can you guys hear this discussion by any chance? I just realized you might not be privy to that.
Yeah, I can hear it.
Online folks, can you guys hear the conversation that you are able to? Okay, good.
I think you're kind of having issues with that question of like, you have to like include, I know you said earlier you don't have to include an intervention, but it's like when you're kind of reading those questions, like you would think maybe the intervention they are going for is PMS or diet. So, but then usually they're confident.
So first of all, the end game of this is I don't want you to sweat intervention and comparator too much, but I do want you to think of the fact that you need to have something. You need to have two groups. one. And also, you need to be very clear on your population and the outcome. Because the comparators or intervention, whatever you end up calling them, they are all independent variables. But, hold in. I tell you what today. My sad violin song. I gotta get it due. I just realized. It doesn't sound so sad until I'm in class.
Someone like you can come.
I shouldn't have sad violin song. I'll put some salsa. Okay, so does that make sense? It doesn't matter at the end of the day because they're all on the right side of the equation, right?
Like the independent.
Yes. Does that make sense? The why is key. Know your why. So group that wrote this question, what was your intention with the medication versus exercise and diet?
We were thinking the medication is the control on the exercise and diet.
Okay, so you did think intervention. Very good. Okay, does that make sense, everybody? Because there is that third element of usual care, and that's why I was like, oh, I keep turning. I was like, gosh, they do nothing is typically, yeah. All right, good job. So we're gonna stop there. I am gonna take a picture of these and post them for you guys to practice because I strongly urge you to do that. And we're gonna take a little 5-minute break, get some water. When we come back, we're gonna keep moving forward with mesh terms because, and I'll show you how to do the SAS part, but it looks like unless we get enough computers, I don't even have access. So we're kind of out of luck on SAS once again, because it seems like they only spot checked 1 or 2 computers and then left.
They tried to fix it, oh no, this is above me.
No, earlier they went in and said that they said, oh, they were updated. But some of you guys have some that are updated, well, and then they stopped it. So I was like, okay, so take a break and we'll come back to it. Let me pause the online. All right, so take a break, guys. 5 or 10 minutes, and I'll see you guys soon. Let me pause. I'll be right with you. Give me 1 second. Let's finish out today with the operationalization of the wonderful thinking that we've done. So we've been really freestyling and brainstorming our research questions. And again, remember that a research question just starts with an observation, right? Just a thought. But we need to think about it in practice, right? So the next thing that we do is we look at the evidence. So we operationalize this thinking. This is in your lab. So these are the same list, right? So we talked about our research question. And like I said, we have one. The other thing you want to think about is what's called inclusion exclusion criteria. And that simply means specification, okay? So if you're including a group or if you're excluding anybody. So if you're doing humans only, or are you including animal studies? And who are you looking at when you think about your population? Because this impacts your search, right? So when you're searching for studies, you're going to only look for human studies. This is very important, especially if you are looking at a field that has a lot of research attached to it. So when I talked to you guys about disparities, there was quality outcomes. When you talk about these bigger outcomes, these bigger constructs, there's going to be a lot of evidence, a lot of papers. So you want to think of a way to thin them out. And other inclusion exclusion things to consider are, I want to include this many years, but I want to exclude any studies that occurred in this time or in this group or whatever. So it can be anything from period of time. So you sometimes want to limit. And sometimes it's hard, like what years do I want to do? If you're looking at a new policy, but that the policy is only part of the Affordable Care Act, then what will probably be the limit of the furthest back in years that you're going to go? You'll probably go back no earlier than what? I'm so old. Okay, 2010.
Oh, you can.
Seems so recent to me, but I realize that I'm so old. I'm so old. Okay. 2010. So you would do any studies 2010 on, right? Because the Affordable Care Act didn't happen until 2010. Make sense? So typically, if you are unclear as to what the time limit of your study would be, think of it in terms of some policy or something that may mark an important element for your research question or population of interest, or you're out. Does that make sense? Another one, for example, would be like Alzheimer's disease and dementia, and any major legislation associated with that. Does that make sense? Now, mind you, there are some really important seminal studies that date back many, many years, but those are typically going to be referenced in the earlier papers anyway. Okay. Other inclusion exclusion you want to think about are, for example, whether or not you want to include international studies. But this, anytime you include exclude, keep in mind that you are shrinking your knowledge pool, right? So for example, I am really lucky because I speak Spanish. So I can include English and Spanish in my searches, but not everybody can. So you would do English only studies, for example. But consider that most abstracts are in English. So make sure that you at least say, let me at least have a look at that abstract so that I know that topic is there. Okay, so try not to limit yourself as much as possible, but be very mindful of what you limit so that you do not have this enormous pool that's impossible to search. Does that make sense? Okay. So what we do that's really critical for pulling the study is called term harvesting. And term harvesting, and you'll notice this in your assignment, is basically where you're brainstorming terms. And if you notice, Heiko comes back to haunt us, and there's 3 types of terms. The reason that we use 3 types of terms is just because we want to brainstorm and make sure that we've thought as much as we can. And the reason that we do that is because these are going to come pretty naturally to us. So text words are our natural language, right? The word we thought of. Older adults. So we would put older adults. The concept, and this is pretty similar, but then you think of every synonym that you can think of related to older adults. Elder, geriatric, aging, anything you can think of. And then think of the conjugation as well, right? Age, populate, whatever, anything you could possibly think. It's like a word. Okay. And notice we're just taking from the Heiko, right? And then we think, you know, okay. So here, young children, kids. And then we think clinical terms. Clinical for aging is usually geriatric. Sometimes there's nothing. That's fine. Then we go to mesh terms. Okay. So the important thing is that you've exhausted these. Often they will be the exact same in all people. That's totally fine. But you just want to make sure you think, did I think about this? I did. Okay. Okay. But the mesh term is what will help you, because a mesh term, how many of you have heard of mesh terms? Has anybody heard of a mesh term? And now I forgot what mesh stands for, so I'll tell you in just a second. Okay. Let's see. You guys can read that. So the mesh term is your BFF when it comes to general topics to find a ton of studies. And I put this here for you. You can go here and you can, okay, that's fine. You can go and make your own account in the US National Library of Medicine. And I don't want to make my own account because I really just want to do a search. But this is typically where you can sign up. And what you do, and then just don't look at me because I'm going to do it really sloppy. So I usually just go to PubMed because I'm sloppy. And I don't want to log in because I have my own account, blah, blah, blah. The point is, you can make your own account. But you use mesh terms to search for papers based on general topics. But what mesh terms do is that they, am I sharing the screen with these guys? Am I sharing? I'm not. Okay, there we go. Oh, thanks, Ryan. So kind. Okay. Is that they're like a keyword for lots of different studies. So even if I used an abstract term for older adults, I can't think of, let's say I use advanced stage, which is a bizarre way to say older adult. I don't think many people say that. If I added the mesh term for older adult, which we'll find out what it is in a minute, then it'll at least tag it to them. So no matter what crazy terms I'm using, it's attached to it. So that my study will be picked up when a student is searching for this topic area. Does that make sense? So that's why mesh terms are your friend. Okay. Now, the way it works is you can do mesh terms a number of ways. I'll show you my personal favorite, but you can, how many of you have ever used PubMed, by the way? Okay, good. So everybody should have. Okay. So you can go here and you can just go here. And you see here mesh term, mesh subheading, mesh. These are all the same, just start with term. So let's start with older adult. Oopsies. Okay. Let's see what it finds. It found 3,296,878. That's a lot, right? That's going to be really hard for us, but it already got us started. Okay. So when I start and I care about older adults, I can start saying, okay, look, these are all the other ways that they use aging or older, right? And these are the terms, the mesh term for older adult. It's not older adult, is it? You see what the actual term is? It's aged, which I would never use because I just find that to be terrible, but that's okay. Does that make sense? So in my box, I would go back here in my little chart. Where did it go? Oh, that's not it. Did I lose? Oh, there it is. In here, and I would do aged. Okay. Now you would not use that in a research question, would you? You would use older adults, that's perfect. But you could search for studies using the mesh term. Does that make sense? Okay. Why don't you find, I don't like any of these for mesh terms. So everybody go find the mesh term for limited English proficiency. Somebody tell me what the mesh term is for limited English proficiency. So there's a couple of ways for finding mesh terms. One is you just search here and you hit mesh and you hit, whatever. And my personal favorite, which I gotta find this, is, let me see. Well, you guys do your thing and I'll find there's one thing here. I can never find the link right away. It's like my favorite though. Oh, medical subject headings. That's what it means. Okay. Limited English proficiency. So the clinical term, there is no clinical term because it's not a clinically diagnosed disease. So the normal term is just limited English proficient, language barrier, right? So what is mesh calling? LEP? You found it? It's Well, no, I want to,
And it doesn't say exactly.
there it is. Ha, found it. Mesh. So this is my favorite place to search. I meant to put this link in y'all in the website. I'll put it on the webpage for you guys. I always lose this. This is my little secret, so you're welcome. I have never told any class this, but now you know, because I always forget. I just love it.
So the website?
The medical subject heading. My favorite place to look for mesh. Usually you can just look for it in the PubMed window, which is usually where I direct you to, because it's too confusing. But honestly, this is my favorite spot. Anybody LEP or limited English?
I got English proficiency comma limited. And then a bunch of different variations.
Okay, good. And then what? I heard another one though. Say it out loud.
Communication.
Communication. That's right. Both of them. So English proficiency is a subhead, but the main term is communication. And it's humongous. So it's completely different than what you would have expected, right? And that's why you have to really look around and play with this. So the reason I like this, so let's see what we get. We're gonna do I'll just do limited English. Okay, limited English proficiency. There's the heading. So limited English proficiency does live there. Let's look at the tree structure. And look. So what you're seeing here, can you guys see this? I feel like it's being cut off still. Is it being cut off? Why does it do that? Okay, is that better? So the way it works is, this is still a mesh term, by the way. It's not that it's not even as a subheading, it's still a mesh term, okay? But look where it is. It's under communication barriers, which is under communication, which is under information science. So if you want similar studies, you work your way up the tree. Does that make sense? So it's kind of like Kingdom Phyla, whatever, I can't remember them all now. It's like years ago. But if I were to look at communication barriers, do you see how there's lots more? So all of these go under communication. And then if you click up the tree, information science, you can see all of these. See? Information science is humongous. And then under communication, which is under information science, it's also humongous. And then under communication barriers, so you can see the full tree. Well, now you can't because I cut it off again. But I love this. I think it's so cool. But this helps you see, oh, you know what? I actually want some of this stuff too. I kind of want some health literacy or health communication. So let me go with communication to see what I can grab, right? Can I see a hand up?
Yeah, so with these mesh terms, how is it relevant? Are these terms relevant to structure our research question? Or if we see a research question, we can refer to these mesh terms to, investigate the research.
Second one. So these mesh terms help you find evidence to support your idea. Because do we even know if this is a thing? Do we know if older adults is associated with SNFs versus home alone versus disparities? Or is this completely new? We don't know. So let's find out. Same idea, okay? So when we look at limited English, we go back. That's a really great question. How are they associated? But does it make sense then? Where's my, there it is. So that's why you want all the terms. You want limited English proficient, language barriers. The one that will probably be most useful to you is here. This will help you conceptualize. So this is layman's terms, slang, natural language, how you would use every day. And this is clinical, and this is mesh. But do you see how you're doing your PICO in here? the key is the population and the outcome, and ideally, the comparator is your primary independent variable of interest, by the way. So that's what C is. C is your primary independent. Okay? But if you have an intervention, that's your primary independent variable. Does that make sense? Yeah? So when you start making for your assignment, let's jump over to the assignment real quick. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to have a look, but the assignment is to do exactly what we just did. So the assignment is to do your research question. The assignment is to put some inclusion criteria or exclusion. You can come up with anything you want. And then you harvest returns. And I put clinical mesh and then your PICO. And this, you can put clinical or you can put just your general natural language here under clinical as well. I think with this, the last class, I think I left it that way because I think I just let them use their PICO. But I don't mind if you use your natural language. Okay. And then you're actually going to run it. You're going to look for stuff. So we had communication, right? You guys want to go with communication or eliminating English proficiency? Communication. Let's go broad, okay? And then older adults, we'll stick with that population. What was that mesh? Do they remember? There you go. And what's an outcome? Somebody give me a mesh term for an outcome. So we have communication. And notice this is just the same thing, and CBI, NLM, and then / mesh. So we have communication. And we're going to add communication, right? See how they're all here again? So we're going to add communication. See how it's communication? Let's search PubMed. How many did it come back with? 330,000 results. Okay. So if I only search communication, I have to look at 330,000 studies. That feels like a lot. I don't know about y'all, but this assignment isn't worth it. Okay. So here, if I enter just communication, I'm going to have 30,000 results. Does that make sense? Because this is, you're tracking this. This is the systematic part. Does that make sense? So I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. Let's add something else. What else do you want to add?
Literacy.
Oh, that could be an outcome. Is that a mesh term? Check it. Tell me what the mesh term is for literacy. Do you mean health literacy?
Yeah. I guess
Okay, what's the mesh term? I feel like that's also communication. That's NCBI. See the address here? ncbi.nlm.nih.gov /mesh. Education as an outcome. Oh, we can add that. Let's add that. Okay. So let's add, oops. We want that one, add education or educational status. And here's an important thing. If you notice, sometimes you'll tell you the year that it started. So if you notice, sometimes, gosh, it's still cutting you guys off. Let me make sure the window's over. Is that better? It'll tell you the year it started. So see this one, 2014. So if your search is starting in 2010, you need to be mindful of that. So it might not be a useful, or let's say you're in 2005, that might not be a useful mesh term for you, right? So keep that in mind because you might be missing out on some important studies. So let's go with education. And you see here where it did this and this. Now, you guys can write this. You guys can write the mesh term yourself. So just pay attention to how it's written and you can easily do it yourself. Okay? But all it's doing is it's saying, hey, I want this and this. And is a Boolean operator. So if you've heard of Boolean terms, all it means is it's conditional. Okay, so now let's search on that. Oh, that's better. So I go back to my table. And this time I'll only put 60,000. So I'll put communication and education, 60,000. Let's do better than that. Okay, what else can we come up with? What else can we come up with? What's an outcome? That's not an outcome. Diagnosis of what? I need a disease. There we go. Alzheimer's. What's the mesh term for Alzheimer's? How did we get to the search builder page? So the search builder can get there a number of ways. This is just one that I'm used to, but you can actually get to the search builder even if you go here. That's why it's good to sign up for an account because it'll save your searches for you. But you can just go here. And then it'll go here and do advanced. Let's see, PubMed search folder. So if you go here, it'll do it for you. So you just go here and go to mesh terms, and you can do it here too. So you do communication. No, and then you can do and. Oh, hang on. And what was the other one? Education, right? So then you can add and see how it's doing it for me. So you can do it in there too. This is, I think, their new website. I keep going to the old one because I'm old, but this works too. Make sense? What's another one? Oh, Alzheimer's. What's the mesh term for Alzheimer's? Okay, so here's another mesh terms. Is this what? Okay, that's really broad. So Alzheimer's, but that's the beta protein, so we don't want that. We want dementia. So there's all kinds of dementia here, right? Let's do that one. Yes.
How far up do we go for the mesh tree? Because they have like a bunch of different ones.
Read the whole mesh under the subheading, and if you're curious about, like you'd be willing to review all of them, then pick them all.
Okay.
If it's too much, then just pick the simple one and then go back. It's iterative. You do spend some time with this. Okay, you do spend some time with this. So we went with acute onset vascular dementia. See, everybody look up here for me, please. Here's another hint. So you might like this one better because it counts it for you. See, we did older adult. Oh, we forgot older adult in this one. Okay, let's do search. How many does that give us? 8. Win. So we have communication, education, and dimension. No, that one actually looks really good. Okay. This is my field, so I'm like, oh, this is really good. Hold on, let me look at these. Okay. But yeah, so you have 8. This is actually not, this is not that many. So you might have overdone, it, right? For starting search, you might have overcorrect, right? So one thing you can do is you don't have to use a mesh term. Let's say for that last one. For that last one, let's say you don't want to. Let's say, and this is where it becomes a scoping review. So let's say, hold it. Oh yeah. Let's say for this one, I want to do this. And you can add it. Do you guys see how I did that? You go to actions and you add it. And then I can just put and, but I'm just going to use a keyword. I'm just going to do Alzheimer's. And I'm trying to remember if it's, I think it's this. I got to play with this because I can't remember exactly, but it's something like this. It gives me a little more. Make sense? Yeah. When you say order,
Like first, if you have to find our evidence for the next term, you go on this.
so it's in the slide. Make sure you read the slides, but essentially, we did our PICO, our really crappy PICO. So we have an idea of where to start, right? So PICO, and you're going to do about 100 of these. So you just need to commit to that. You have about 100 million different iterations of your research question. Even if you fall in love with your very first one, you're like, no, this is it. This is the one. I guarantee you 99.9 of you will be like, I think I need to change our research. Every single student is always like, Dr. Shpino, I don't think I'm going to stick with this English question. I'll be like, I know. So it's nobody ever does. So just keep that in mind. Second thing is exclusion, inclusion. Just have a think on it. Maybe you're not excluding anything. Maybe you're not including anything. I doubt that. But you know, whatever. Little secret on that. There's no criteria. It's thinking about your topic, your population, and your outcome. So, but I will tell you some easy ones is I like for you guys, since you're poor, free full text. Just kidding. I'm saying that because you're students. I'm sorry. I hope I do apologize. That was the callous joke, and I was a poor graduate student. That's why I said that. But I hope that nobody was offended by that. And if you were, I do apologize sincerely. No, really, because I care about that, and I don't mean to offend anyone. But I, as a poor graduate student, would always pick this one, the free full text, because I couldn't pay for them. Go ahead.
Generally, how far back do you look?
Okay, so remember I said you want to associate it with an event, a policy. So 10 years is like a very weird heuristic that doesn't make a lot of sense when it depends, again, on the population, the disease outcome, the comparator. Because 10 years, for Alzheimer's, for example, that's okay. But most of what we know is much more recent. Lung cancer, it's too far, right? Like treatment advances. But social behavioral sociology for 50 years. So that's why I'm like, I don't love that heuristic. So I don't want to say that.
But it depends on the topic.
That's why I say, think about it. Contextualize that question that you have and say, what do I know about this? What do I know about older adults? Has there been any major legislation aside from Social Security Act, Medicaid, Medicare Act, right? If that's all you can think of, go back to 1965. But there's definitely been reform since 96. Depending on what you're interested in. Does that make sense? Okay. Good question. But that's why I made such a big deal about the time, is that maybe you're just interested in like something that came out last year. You know, like, or like a certain type of contraceptive, or, you know, it just happened. Well, usually then you probably have to wait about a year, actually. Does that make sense? Okay. So yeah. This is something you want to do because you don't want to waste your time not getting anything that doesn't have anything. The other one you want to do, see these filters? Here's some ideas. Species, language, sex, subject, age. The other thing is, who are you looking at? Adults, children? Again, that's why I said population, outcome, comparators. That's your inclusion exclusion. Okay? Does that make sense? That's the criteria. And this is, I know, the ambiguity that's very, very uncertain. Don't think of it as, I'm not going to get it right. Think of it as an opportunity for you to discover. That makes sense? So don't let it be scary.
So the inclusion and exclusion, I'm not still able to understand is I'm going to be deciding, are we going to include our population or exclude our outcomes?
I'm going to include all adults, but not adults with more than 2 comorbidities. I love it when I start to do like one thing, like, okay,
Yeah, because
leave me
the
alone.
example makes it more clear.
You're like, I'm good. I'm done. We're good. You got it, really? You tell me, right? Yeah, you would tell me. Okay. Okay, 3. Did I see a hand up? No. Okay. 3. Term harvesting. So you got your PICO, remember? And we're gonna do clinical, mesh, and think of concepts as the natural language. So you got your PICOs, but pretty much a word dump, like synonym. Did we play Scrabble? Any Scrabble players here? I hate Scrabble, but I do this. I don't know why, I just hate it. I don't know, because English is like technically my second language. Anyway. Oh, are we past time? Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. You guys have to go. I'll finish the list. But clinical and mesh terms, and then run the search and count. Okay? Does that make sense? Now the extraction, which is the second part of the homework, I will do it next week, so I'll give you a little extension on that part.
Yeah, so for the count, because we used a couple of websites, so the best way you said is first to go to Calculate Advanced Search Folder and type the mesh term.
You got to find the mesh term.
So, yeah, so.
You guys can go. I'm going to stop the recording, and then I can answer any questions.
Thanks, Dr. Shafino.
We have to search for the text.